Here's some more crap from the Discovery Channel. I can't believe they didn't say what the Israelis are selling to China.
Imagine you're a big ship sitting in the Atlantic Ocean filled with cargo destined for the Pacific. The trouble is, there's something in the way. It's called America. For hundreds of years, circumnavigating South America cost merchants time, money, and lives. But in 1914, the gates opened to what was then the largest, the most expensive, and the most breathtakingly ambitious engineering project in American history: the Panama Canal. The canal is almost 100 years old, but remains vital for world trade. Every year, a staggering 14,000 ships pass through this complex 50-mile system of locks and waterways. So, how do they do it? It's 10 a.m. on a hot, sticky June day, and the zim-New-York is steaming into Limon Bay, the Caribbean entrance to the Panama Canal. Having set sail from Israel 3.5 weeks ago, she's laden with containers destined for China. In charge of the ship and her crew is Captain Anastasios.
From New York to Los Angeles takes via the canal 10 days, and south of South America via the Magellan Strait it takes 24 days. That means 14 days different.
The Panama Canal is a vital man-made trade route with one problem. To reach Panama City on the Pacific coast, the ZIM will have to navigate a complicated and hazardous series of tight locks and narrow waterways. The canal is narrow. The zim-New-York is big, bigger than the Titanic. At over 58,000 tons, it's one of a special generation of ships known as Panamax ships, the largest able to pass through the canal. And it's too dangerous to navigate in the dark, so the ship has just 8 hours to get through before nightfall.
Okay.
To get through in time demands the skills of an expert. Enter Captain Thomas Martinez. Martinez has been guiding ships through the canal system for 16 years, but even for him, getting a large ship like the ZIM through is a challenge.
Every ship is different, you know, and you enjoy your job because every day is different in the canal.
Because of the ship's vast size, they'll be joined by a second pilot, Lescano Eliseo, who will assist Captain Martinez to guide her through the canal. Constructing the Panama Canal was the most awesome achievement of its era, and remains one of the biggest engineering projects ever undertaken. It all started in 1880 when the French tried to build a canal here. But the French failed, and the attempt cost the lives of 20,000 workers. The United States picked up where the French left off. It was a Herculean effort and plagued by setbacks, including disease and landslides, which claimed the lives of 5,000 more men. An hour after entering the canal, the zim-New-York has already traveled nearly 7 miles from the Caribbean entrance and is approaching its first major challenge. This is the Gatun Lock. The Gatun Lock is in fact 3 interconnected locks, which link the Atlantic entrance to the canal to Lake Gatun, which sits 85 feet above sea level. At almost 1,000 feet long, Panamax ships like the ZIM are not just bigger than the Titanic, they're also the same size as the lock.
As you can see, this ship is 106 feet wide, and the entrance of the lock is 106 feet wide. So you have no room.
Not only is a ship like the zim-New-York tough to maneuver, fully laden it also weighs a hefty 72,000 tons. If it's damaged, it can't sail. If the lock is damaged, the Panama Canal shuts down.
420.
loud and clear. 816 relay in the upper left.
To make matters worse, the pilots Thomas and Lescano must steer the Zim from the bridge, which is more than 700 feet behind the ship's bow, into a gateway they can't even see. It takes a tense 30 minutes to maneuver the Zim to the entrance of the lock. Now, a series of cables tie the ship to teams of locomotives known as mules. Each of these 50-ton mules can tow more than 100 times its own weight. And between them, they slowly inch the Zim into position. With the Zim safely docked, the lockkeeper closes the gates to the Caribbean. These massive gates are more than 6 feet thick and designed so that the weight of the water inside the lock will hold them closed. Once shut, valves between the lock chamber and the lake are opened and water floods into the lock. It takes just 8 minutes for 21 million gallons of water to pour into the lock chamber, lifting the Zim 25 feet. But there's still another 60 feet to go. So the locomotives drag the Zim into the middle chamber, and the process is repeated. After 3 locks, the Zim New York has been raised 85 feet. The tethers attaching her to the mules are released, and she continues on to Gatun Lake. She has completed the first stage of her journey through the Panama Canal. It's now 1 p.m. and only 5 hours of daylight left to navigate several hazardous sections of waterway. So it's full speed ahead across Lake Gatun. Coming up, negotiating the narrowest part of the canal at Gaillard Cut.